Hi guys, Gilly Hunt here with my A to Z guide to Stampin' Up products, and I'm on the letter Q, which is for quality and quick with the Stamparatus. And I'm on session 9, would you believe? So we're nearly there because I'm going to do 10 sessions on the Stamparatus. There's just so much you can do with it. I could probably do 100 sessions. So session 9 though is looking at being a little bit more arty with it, a little more advanced techniques. We're going to look at highlighting with colour, we're going to look at smooshing and marbling, and we're going to look at layering for density and subtlety. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to have a little go at showing you a technique using shaving foam, which could either be wonderful or it could be a complete disaster. So hang on in there till the end and see what a mess I get in, or not. You never know, I might be absolutely marvellous. Miracles may happen. Okay, so first of all we're going to start with our equipment. We've got the foam mat in place because we're using a photopolymer, and I am going to put these, let's just not clang them together, I'm going to put in my L shape so that I know that I've got that nicely put into the corner and it's going to stay in place. And if it doesn't stay in place, I can always slot it back in. Okay, that's why we have that L shape. I explained that in earlier sessions, so if you're at all unsure about how to set up the equipment, please refer back to sessions 1, 2, 3, 4 and what have you, okay? I'm not going to bore you and do it every time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of grey onto my tulip. Now I love doing this particular technique using either smoky slate or Sahara sand, both of which are really lovely, but you could use any base colour, but mostly a neutral if possible, and you'll see why in a moment. Now I don't want it to be very dark, so I'm going to very gently just take off a little bit of the ink, and we may have to go in a second time. Sometimes I take off too much, but we'll see. No, that's fine. Now what I've done is I've now got what I would call almost like a little ghostly shadowy image of my tulip, and it's that shadowy image that's going to provide the base for this to work from. I might just give it another little push down without re-inking, just to see if I can, yeah, that's better, just to get a little bit more of the details. I perhaps hadn't pushed hard enough to just get the details. Okay, so now I'm going to take my chamois and I'm going to very carefully, by pressing up and down, clean my stamp, because I don't want any of that grey left. Okay, but I'm doing it up and down because I absolutely do not want to move this at all, because this technique relies on the wonderful fact that the Stamparatus just repeat stamps in exactly the same place. So I'm now going to take some, I can't remember what colour I used, petal pink. Now some people are very happy to use a dauber on their ink pads and to pick up the ink like this. Okay, now my problem is, and I want to show you this little corner, can you see this corner? Ooh, it's very hard with the lights. If you use a dauber, it's very easy to just soak up ink from one particular place. So let's just do this corner one more time. Can you see how it's soaked up that corner? And that's fine, but it takes a little while for all the ink to run back and fill that area of the pad. And so you will have for a while a little bit of ink missing from there. And it does mean that getting a really nice clean image on your stamps may be a problem. And so the way I solve this is I use any size of block, doesn't matter, and I just ink the block like this. So what I'm doing is I'm taking ink equally from all the way across that flat surface. That means it is a tiny bit more wasteful on your ink, but it does mean that your ink pad now, if I wanted to use it, would still be perfectly soaked with ink, and I can now play with this instead. So I'm going to try and do this so that you can see. So what I'm going to do I would normally just do this on here, but I'm just going to do it down here so you can see. So I've just taken some of the ink onto my dauber, and you could do this with a sponge or whatever other, if you have brushes, but I like the little Stampin' Up daubers. And all we're going to do is we're just going to daub a little bit around the edges. We're not going to put a lot on. Okay, now I'm going to pop that back in. Okay, and because I know it's lined up, although I've had it out and I've put it back, because we're back into the hinge, I know this is going to line up. So here we go. And I'm going to continue this all the way around. Okay, this is just, hold on. Sorry, I wanted to move that because I just felt that that was just catching on the, let's pop it up there. It was just catching on here and it was stopping it hitting the edge of there. Here we go. And I'm going to just catch the tips too. And I'm going to just also catch the front edge of here, a tiny little bit. Okay, and that is what I want to achieve. All I'm wanting to achieve is just to get the colour through. Now, doesn't that give you that old-fashioned print style? Okay, and we could work more colour in, so let's just show you. We'll take this now from being a very pale, rather ethereal piece of work, and we're going to bring in, instead of that very nice pale petal pink, a little bit of Calypso coral. And I'm going to do it in exactly the same way. I'm just going to pad the ink pad up and down onto a, and I need to find my Calypso coral. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to get it onto the dauber, and again I'm just going to add little pieces, not too much. The wonderful thing is you can keep going back and forth, take a little bit more of your colour, add a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to just add a little piece in here. I don't want too much because I want to keep that feeling that it's a sketch. Now, can you see how we're building that kind of lovely shape and colour? And because we can keep going back in exactly the same place, we can build it up as we wish. Okay. And I just want to show you the effect. And you could spend quite some time getting the effect of your choice, but because it's got that grey, it's almost like one of those old-fashioned illustrated storybooks. Okay, so that's one thing you can do with your Stampin'-Ups. You can get some really lovely, beautiful images just touched with colour, not soaked in colour, but just touched with colour. So let's just take that off. And I'm going to bring in another image, and because this is now a red rubber image, I'm going to get rid of the foam mat, because we only need foam once, remember, from the beginning, and this has already got foam attached to the rubber. So here we go. And I'm going to show you another thing you can do with colour. So let's just attach this in. Okay, and I've got a lovely oak tree here. And I've got, this time, a whole load of different colours. I've got two greens, and what else have I got? Cajun craze and pumpkin pie. So I'm going to just have those off camera, but I'll tell you what colours I'm bringing in as I do them. And I'm going to do them just the same way as I did before, onto a little block. So I've got my blocks all set up off camera because it's just a bit too hard to do it on camera. So first of all, we're going to have a bit of Pear Pizzazz. And I'm going to use the Pear Pizzazz just to give me some overall colour. but I don't want it to be really solid, so I'm just going to pop it on and off and on and off and on and off like that. Okay, and here it goes. And it's very, very, very thin, not very harsh. So I'm going to go back again with the Pear Pizzazz, and again I'm going to try and just blur it a little bit. Okay, so just beginning to get a bit of features. Still looks horribly messy and a bit patchy. So let's have a go with some Old Olive. So I'm going to come in with the Old Olive and just add some little tiny pieces with this. Okay, excuse the telephone if you can hear it in the background. I don't know whether you can or not, but I can hear it clearly, and I'm hoping my hubby's going to pick it up in a moment. Here we go, and we're going to have a little bit more. I'm going to bring in a little bit more down here, and I'm just going to carry on around where the trunk comes at the top here, at the bottom, sorry, of the tree. Here we go. Now, can you see we're beginning to build up some layers? Now, I've got plenty of green now. Now I want to have a little go, because I want to make this into a rather lovely autumnal tree. So I'm going to bring in some pumpkin pie. Let's just have some pumpkin pie. And again, I'm just going to spool this in. Okay. And I'm just really randomly moving this in and out. Now I want to do a little bit more along. Maybe, I'm trying to think where that is on here. That's going to be about here, isn't it? So let's add a bit more colour in there, because we've got a little bit of patchiness missing there. So let's just fill that in. There we go. So we've got some lovely, lovely brightness there. And now I'm going to go for a little bit of Cajun craze. Excuse me click-clacking in the distance here. So Cajun craze, again we'll pick it up on the dauber, and I'm wanting to just highlight the tips and the tops of the tree. Because usually, I don't know where you live, but where I live it tends to be that the tree stays green, and it's the kind of outer leaves that tend to go first in the autumn. So let's just see if we can just get that top part. Here we go. Now we're beginning to get some really nice mixed colours in. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, and remember you can mix media, so don't be afraid to think, oh no. You'll notice that I haven't really done the tree trunk, so I'm going to come in with a marker pen. And when you're mixing media, one of the things to think about is, are you mixing the same type of inks? And yes, we are, because these are marker pens, and marker pens are also water-based, so these will mix beautifully with your inks and make really good effects. So I'm then going to just blur this piece here, and I'm going to use two, because I just want to pick up some of the red and some of the oranges of the Cajun craze and the pumpkin. And I wanted to blur the top because I don't want to have like a brown trunk and then nothing. So here we go. There we are. And that reddy brown has come all the way up through now. Now, isn't that beautiful? I could work on that for some time. I could bring in all kinds of colours, but doesn't that give you some wonderful effects? Okay, so that's the other thing we can do. We can highlight a simple thing with just a single colour, or we could start to mix our colours. And we could go quite mad. In fact, I am just wondering with this one, I'm just going to, just because I'm wanting to get it really lovely for you, I'm just going to bring in a little bit of real red, and I'm just going to put a touch of real red in at the top. And I'm going to use a sponge because I can't find my real red dauber at the moment. I don't know what I've done with it. So just use a little sponge. A little bit of real red just to give it a bit of zing. There we go. That's just riched up the background. You can't tell it's red, but what it does is it mixes with the other colours and just gives you that warmth and that depth. Okay, so that's another idea for you to try. Have a go at those two techniques. Right, I'm getting quite a mess down here, so I'm hoping I can just sort things out a bit here. So let's take that off and let's find the next plate. Ooh. Forgive me, I'm throwing things on the floor now. Let's clip that in. And this, and I'm just going to dive down onto the floor and pick up that. Oh, listen to me, I'm on the floor, on my hands and knees, underneath the cupboard. Oh, there it is. I'm coming back, I promise. It was my Sahara Sand Dauber had done a runner. There we go. So now I want to think about being a little bit more subtle with our single colour drawings. So we've talked about the fact that we can make, so let's just pick this up first and foremost. Okay, now this time what I'd like to show you is how you can use your daubers and your inks to create maybe a little bit of focus, maybe a little bit of subtlety in your work. So I'm going to stamp this using Sahara Sand. Okay, and as before with the tulip, I'm just going to very gently pad it with a little bit of copy paper so that we only get a very faint or a much paler base, okay, and that's a much paler base. Okay, and in fact I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm going to go in, and again it's nice to be able to do it. It's always best to have it paler than you want it and then to come back. Okay, there we go. So again we've got a slightly ghosted version of what we're after. And now we're going to come in with, I'm just going to shunt this up a little bit. In fact, I'm going to shunt it off the screen a bit so that I can bring in the ink to show you. I'm going to put the ink, like before, onto a block, which means we can just pick it up and use it. Now what I want to do this time is I really want to pick out one particular flower and I want to really highlight it. So I'm just going to bring this particular flower into focus. So this is the one we're wanting to work on. Okay, so all I'm going to do is go in onto this with my dauber and my extra bits of ink. Okay, let's just pick up a little bit more ink onto my block. Let's go in again. Which side? This side. Now what I've started to do, and I hope you can see, is we're creating a deeper, darker piece which is more clear, and then we're allowing this slightly out of focus, less well stamped image just fade into the distance. So I'm going to pick up one more. No, I'm not. I think I'm going to just, yeah, let's pick up this one as well, because these are both actually at the forefront, aren't they? So I'm going to pick up this one a bit more too. So I'm going to pick up some ink off here and work on, I've got to work out which one it is. It's that one. So it's this one here. Okay. So pick up some ink, and it's this one here. Now, can you see it? We're beginning to get this one now popping up from in front of these. So let's just have a little bit more ink on that. There we go. We just want to work on that one. Here we go. Right, that's what I want to do. Okay, now can you see what I have managed to do there is with a simple single piece, I've managed to highlight this one and this one, which makes them look as if they're much further forward, and it pushes these into the distance and into the back. So all we're doing is working on top of by building up layers, and that's the great thing with ink. Each time you come with another lot of layer, you add an extra piece of colour and you add a little bit. Now we've just been working there in plain simple one monotone colour, and I'm going to just also show you another one just to kind of show you how different images work. So this one worked because we've got a large drawing and we're bringing some pieces forward. This one I'm going to bring in and swap this plate for that one. This one I'm just going to work with the deer, and in almost the same way. So let's put the deer in the middle, let's stick him down so that we've got everything held in place. Okay, and we're going to bring in this time crumb cake, which is a nice, if there is such a thing as a deery colour. I don't know, I'm sure deers are lots of different colours, but this is like a nice ordinary brown. And when I stamp it, it's a really nice image, okay, but it's just an image of a deer. We don't really see his face very strongly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do what I did before, and that's add some colour from the same colours we've used. So it's still the crumb cake, and I'm going to just grab some off here, and I want to highlight his face and his muzzle. So I'm going to be very gentle and careful that I just try and catch the front of his face. I want to try and catch the front of his legs and just the front of his breastbone here, because what I want to try and do is pull out the features to make him look like he's stepping forward. Here we go. Now I've hardly changed much, but I think you'll agree he's beginning to pull forwards. Let's just go one more time over his face. And we'll go one more time over his face, even more, I think. And it's all very subtle, very gentle, very subtle, but I promise you, once you get used to doing this, you'll become fascinated with the change. There we go. Now his face is now much more pronounced and moved forwards. And if I was just to use a little bit of pen work on top of that, I could make him even more so. And I just want to show you, because I bet you've forgotten what the very first one was like. But this is what, here's one that I did before, and here is just the first going over, and this is where I've highlighted his head and his front. And it really does make him look much more three-dimensional, doesn't it? And in fact, actually, I think even more so the one we've just done, because I've left the back end even paler. So what we can do is we can start to make our images a bit more subtle, a bit more advanced, a bit more clever. Okay, so that was the subtle, clever, gentle stuff. Now we're going to start doing some smushing and mushing and all the other stuff. Okay, and the lovely thing with Stampin' Up is that quite a lot of your smushing and mushing is done because we actually have stamps that are arty, that give you kind of arty backgrounds. So for example, I'm going to show you in the catalogue here, we have some that give us arty backgrounds. We have the birch tree, we have the dry brush, we have the camouflage. They give you a slightly textured, lovely background. But I'm going to also show you how you can create some more wonderful, wonderful backgrounds of your own. I'm going to bring in my pot of goodies here, some little pieces of card just to have a little experiment on. Okay, so here's where the Stamparatus is great. I'm going to take some ink from here, and I have here some screwed up pieces of cling film. If you're in America, it's Saran wrap, I think, but over here we call it cling film. And all I've done is just scrunched it up so that it makes sort of mucky shapes. And I'm just going to start by spraying. Never be afraid to spray. You know, the Stamparatus isn't going to sort of run away because you've sprayed it with a little bit of water. So a little bit of water and the Saran wrap cling film I'm going to take from here, and I'm going to show you how we can make some really great backgrounds. We can smush it and splish it and swirl it and whirl it, and suddenly we have some amazingly wonderful backgrounds. Now, just on its own it can look a little bit messy, but as soon as let's make it into something useful. Oh. There you go. And there's our butterflies flying across a really fabulous background. And that background was purely using a little bit of Saran wrap. Now, why would we bother to use the Stamparatus for that? Well, this is why. Because if we do this again, and I want to show you this again. Okay, I chose a really strong colour as an example for you. And the strong colours you can use really successfully when you're working just by hand, because actually the images are strong and it works well. But I now want to show you what happens if you try to do similar techniques with something a little bit paler. So let's go for Petal Pink, okay? And this is where the Stamparatus comes in brilliantly. So another piece of scrunched up Saran wrap, cling film, and we're going to give it a squirt with some water. Oops, I've got to make sure it's in the right direction. Okay. We're going to pick some of this up. Okay, and yet again we've made our really lovely scrunchy background. Now, here's where we have a problem sometimes. It would help if I could find where I've just put the butterfly down. Oh, here she is. Okay, this time I'm going to use the Stamparatus. But what have I got to do? Which I had forgotten. Because we are using a photopolymer, we need to have the foam mat in place. So let's just pop the foam mat under there. Bring this all back. Okay. So let's go for one here. And let's get one done. Now, can you see, the problem is when you are using a very pale colour, quite frequently it doesn't really stand out from the background, and in fact this one hasn't even inked terribly well. Let's just put that out of the way so you can see. So in we come, we're going to have another go. And it's still quite pale, so I'm going to have another go. I don't want to change the colour up to a brighter, darker colour, because that way I've lost the connection with the background. But by being able to keep coming and going and coming back again and back again and back again, I can now really reinforce that until I've got the colour butterfly that I really want. And then when I've done that, I can just add the prettiest little pearl, one of these beautiful little gems. And this is one of our champagne gems, and I now have a really pretty little butterfly that I could now cut and put onto a card. Okay, so That's another thing you can do with the Stamparatus. You can do some of the normal techniques that you would do in your normal kind of everyday going about things way, but you can do them more successfully because you can double stamp things. You can go back over and over again, and you can make some really pretty. Here's some of the little butterfly. This is a little butterfly I made earlier. So this one, instead of using the wet, I used it dry, and in fact you then get these slightly striated kind of backgrounds. So that's another idea to try. But what I want to show you is you really don't have to worry about this. It's a robust piece of kit. You're not going to damage it by using colour and wet and damp. So here's where I get really brave. Okay, so I'm now going to squirt a little bit of ordinary men's shaving gel. This is the sort of gel that makes a foam. You can just use an ordinary foam, but the gel works particularly well. Now I don't want too much, but I do want it to be splodgy, so having spread it out I want to splodge it around. And let me just find something to wipe my hands with before I end up looking like Coco the Clown with shaving foam all over my hands. I'm just going to wipe a little bit off the top and the side, because that way I'm not going to get too mucky on here, although you can tell it's got mucky, and what I just do is I use it, and then when it's impossible to use anymore I throw it away and make another one. After all, it's only 2 layers of card. So here we go. Okay, now all I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use a couple of drops of our re-inkers. So just a little drop, a couple of drops, and this one is Melon Mambo, and this one is So Saffron, so let's just grab a couple of drops of that as well. Okay, and I'm now going to get myself a cocktail stick, and I'm going to have a bit of fun. I'm going to swish them about, move them around a bit. Right, it's no good trying to make it all into pretty pictures, because it's going to do its own thing when it starts, so whatever you've done, it really won't matter. Now I'm going to get my magnets out of the way because I'd rather not get them coated in stuff. And here we go. Splodge, splodge, splodge. Here I go. And I'm going to just blot that off, and I think I've done that a little bit too. That's all right, it's not so bad. They're all different. However you do it, it will be different. All I'm doing is using a bit of tissue. Actually, that's rather like sort of flames or a fire, isn't it? That could be quite amazing. So you can use it again and again, but let's just show you with a bit less colour, because I actually probably went a little bit over the top with the colour on that one. So let's just show you with a little bit less colour. Now this is how amazingly good the Stamparatus is. I've done this technique many times before by hand, using a tank, using a little tray, putting the foam in, making a complete mess. But look how quickly that was cleaned up, and how quickly this will be cleaned up once I use a cloth on it. Here we go. Okay, so here we go, nice and clean, back to normal, no worries at all. So let's go again. I'm going to pop that into the corner. No, let's not bother with that in the corner. Let's just take that away and let's just stick one in the middle. Okay, so a little bit of shaving cream. And you do only need a tiny drop, really. You don't need loads and loads and loads. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take a much smaller amount this time. Having said I was going to take a smaller amount, I've probably got more there, haven't I? So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of shaving cream over the top, and I'm going to do a smushy pattern with my hand. And this is where I love this, because you can mess around to your heart's content. You can get as splodgy and messy as you like. Stick that under there. And you can get some amazing backgrounds. Let's just wipe it off, because as soon as it's touched, it's down. There we go. That's more marbly. That's more of a traditional, what I call a traditional marbly, because I just used a little bit less. Okay, and I'm sure that given a bit of time and a bit of fun, there we go, you could also use your cling wrap. Okay, let's have another go. You could also have a whale of a time making some sploshy, messy, mucky, terribly designs. And in amongst those messy designs, you'll have some amazingly wonderful things that you can use. And don't forget, if you want to do another area, you can always go back again and fill in any little gap or space where you really want another bit of smush. As long as there's some smush and mush to use, keep going back. Now I've filled in this corner. Okay, and those, as I say, if you then put an image on them, let's go back to an image we've just had not too long ago. Let's swap that round. Do you know what's even nicer? I don't even have to clean it up. I can use the back of it, which is clean, to do my tulip. Let's ink it up. Here we go, and I've got my lovely tulip starting to come through. And if I had been sensible and I had put that in place, so I know, well, actually we could do it like this way. Hold on. I can put it back over. Come on, Jill. Right, let's just get one of the clean plate. Okay. I'm going to come in and use my magnets now. Where's my other magnet? Oh, come on, where have I put my magnet? There he is. Okay, pick it up. It's in the right place. I'm going to go again, ink it up again. And I'm going to go again, so it really shines out through. Okay. That background is very, very, very strong, so what I'm now going to do is completely use the two techniques we've just had. So I'm now beginning to get that tulip to shine out through, and so I'm now going to use a little bit of Merry Merlot, which I'm going to put onto a block, and I'm going to pick the Merry Merlot up. What have I got? There we go. And I'm going to really cover this bottom part here. Okay. And there you go. I've now got a rather nice strong tulip against quite an incredible background. But the bottom line is, you can mess about, you can get subtlety, you can get fiery colours, you can get whatever effect you want, and it is something you just have to play with. And sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you get a little group of cards and you think, I'm not sure I like any of them. But my goodness, when you get one that's just right, it's wow. Okay, I hope I've given you some ideas to try, some thoughts, some kind of new ways of using your Stamparatus. And next week we're going to look at probably the two most used ways of using it, and that is to cut out your die cuts and to work with your mixed punches. Okay, so this will be where we're looking at totally coordinating Stampin' Up products. Thanks very much. Hope that's been fun for you. Bye bye.